It was the 8th of September, 1560. A quiet, eerie silence had fallen over Cumnor Place, a grand house in Oxfordshire. Servants were returning from the village fair. Dusk was settling over the estate. The usual welcoming warmth of the house was absent. A chilling stillness hung in the air. They pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped into the gloom. The house was empty. Their mistress, Amy Robsart, nowhere to be seen. They called her name. Silence answered, echoes bouncing off cold stone. Their search led through deserted halls and chambers. Empty rooms amplified their panic. Where could she be? She'd insisted on staying home, feeling unwell. She'd told her staff to go and enjoy themselves. Finally, they reached the main staircase, a formidable drop to the hall below. At the very bottom, a crumpled figure. It was Amy, still, her neck broken. A scene of shocking, brutal finality. The lady of the house was dead. The immediate conclusion, she must have fallen. These old staircases were treacherous, they were steep, they were often dimly lit. An accidental slip, a moment of dizziness, a fatal tumble. A plausible explanation, one that could close a painful chapter. To understand this dark Tudor mystery, we must first understand the people at its heart. Let's begin with the victim, Amy Robsart. Born in 1532, she was the daughter of a wealthy Norfolk gentleman, Sir John Robsart. She was well-educated, respectable heiress to a considerable fortune. At just 18 years old, she was married to a dashing young courtier, a man with ambition burning in his eyes. His name was Robert Dudley. Theirs was a love match by all contemporary accounts. Their fathers had arranged the union, but the young couple seemed genuinely fond of one another. Her husband, Robert Dudley, was no simple country squire. He was the son of John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland. John Dudley had tried to place Lady Jane Grey on the throne. That failed plot cost Robert's father and brother their heads. It landed Robert himself in the Tower of London, sentenced to death. In the grim shadow of the executioner's axe, he renewed a childhood friendship with the young Princess Elizabeth. Their shared experience of danger and imprisonment forged a bond between them. And then, of course, there is the star of our show, Queen Elizabeth I. When she ascended to the throne in 1558, she was a political miracle. Young, charismatic, fiercely intelligent. The connection between Elizabeth and Robert Dudley was the talk of Europe. From the moment she became queen, she showered him with titles, lands, responsibilities. He was made Master of the Horse, a prestigious position that gave him constant, intimate access to the Queen. They were inseparable. They shared a lifetime of history. The chemistry between them was undeniable. He was her eyes. She was his Queen of Hearts. This was not just a friendship. It was a grand, public romance playing out on the most powerful stage in the world. This passionate public connection placed Amy Dudley in an impossible position. While her husband basked in the Queen's favour at court, she was left behind in a series of rented houses in the countryside. She was the inconvenient wife. She was rarely seen at court, partly due to the political awkwardness of her presence, and partly, it was said, due to a long-standing illness, perhaps a malady in her breast, which we might now recognise as cancer. It was a triangle whether they admitted it or not. Amy's death on the day of the Abingdon Fair seemed on the surface a simple accident. The most glaring inconsistency was Amy's behaviour that morning. She had apparently been insistent, even angry. She demanded her entire household attend the fair, even down to the last kitchen maid. Mrs. Odingsells, a relative, was staying at Cumnor Place. She said Amy was unusually firm about being left alone. Why would a woman, supposedly unwell, insist on being completely isolated in a large empty house? Less like seeking quiet repose, more like ensuring there would be no witnesses. The staircase itself is suspicious, described as a short flight of stairs, not a towering spiral. Could a fall down such stairs break a woman's neck? An inquest was immediately called, led by the local coroner. The jury examined the body and the scene. The official verdict, mischance, accidental death. They said she fell down the stairs, but the verdict did little to quell suspicion. It felt too simple, too clean. Many wondered if the jury was pressured to reach a swift and uncomplicated conclusion to avoid a greater scandal. The news of Amy's death did not clear the way for a royal wedding. Instead, it unleashed a tsunami of suspicion that threatened to drown both Elizabeth and Dudley. The timing was just too perfect. For months, the court had whispered that Dudley was waiting for his wife to die to marry the Queen. Then suddenly she was dead. It looked less like a tragedy and more like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The whispers were everywhere, in the corridors of Whitehall, in the taverns of London, in the courts of Europe. The story was simple and damning. Dudley had his wife murdered to free himself for the Queen. William Cecil, Elizabeth's chief minister, saw the danger immediately. He confided in the Spanish ambassador that the scandal threatened the Queen's reputation and even her hold on the throne. Cecil warned that public perception made a marriage politically impossible. Amy's death drove a permanent wedge between them. The scandal made Dudley untouchable. Marrying a man widely believed to be a murderer was too much, even for a queen in love. Foreign ambassadors had a field day. They reported that people said the Queen would marry her horsekeeper, the man who had killed his wife to make way for her. The story became a weapon for Elizabeth's enemies. The scandal undermined her authority and fueled plots to replace her, perhaps by her Catholic cousin Mary, Queen of Scots. One death in Oxfordshire had become an international political crisis. So who are our suspects? Let's build the case. The prime suspect, of course, is Robert Dudley. His motive was the greatest prize in the kingdom, the hand of the Queen, the title of King Consort. He had openly spoken of his wife's impending death, and her sudden demise was incredibly convenient for his ambitions. The theory goes that he hired an assassin, perhaps his manservant Sir Richard Verney, who was at Cumnor Place shortly before Amy's death, to get the job done. The murder would be disguised as an accident, leaving Dudley free to marry his Queen. It's a compelling narrative, ruthless ambition, dark deeds, the kind of plot Shakespeare would have loved. But what about the Queen herself? Could Elizabeth have been involved? This is the most shocking possibility. The argument for her involvement is tacit approval, if not direct command. Perhaps she and Dudley had an understanding. Perhaps she expressed a desire for Amy to be gone, a desire that her ambitious favourite interpreted as a royal command. Like Henry II, who famously cried, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" Leading to the murder of Thomas Becket, Elizabeth may have used deniability. She could have hinted at her wishes, knowing Dudley would act on them, allowing her to reap the rewards while keeping her own hands clean. It's a chilling thought, the Virgin Queen as a cold-blooded conspirator. However, the evidence against both Dudley and Elizabeth is purely circumstantial. Dudley's panic upon hearing the news seems genuinely convincing to some historians. Why orchestrate a perfect murder and then immediately act in a way that draws maximum attention and scrutiny to it? Furthermore, Dudley was a skilled politician. He must have known that his wife's death under suspicious circumstances would cause a scandal so great it would make his marriage to the Queen impossible. Therefore, a murder would have been the single most counterproductive thing he could have done. From this perspective, Amy's death was the ultimate disaster for his ambitions, not the key to their fulfillment. And the case against Elizabeth is even weaker. There is another compelling suspect, William Cecil. As Elizabeth's principal secretary, Cecil was the most powerful man in England next to the Queen. Modern science has also offered a new, non-conspiratorial explanation. We know from contemporary letters that Amy was suffering from a malady in her breast. In 2008, a historian and medical expert re-examined the evidence and suggested that Amy may have had breast cancer that had metastasized to her bones. Bone cancer can make bones incredibly brittle. A minor slip or stumble on the stairs could have easily caused a spontaneous fracture in her spine, leading to the fall and her broken neck. This theory neatly explains the accidental nature of the death and the lack of a struggle. It transforms the story from a murder mystery into a simple human tragedy. Over the centuries, opinions have swayed back and forth. In the immediate aftermath, guilt was assumed. Dudley was forever tainted by the scandal, and though he remained the Queen's cherished favourite, he never became her husband. He eventually remarried in secret, infuriating the Queen. Elizabeth, for her part, cultivated her image as the Virgin Queen, married only to her kingdom. The scandal, in a strange way, helped to cement this persona. It served as a harsh lesson in the dangers of mixing personal desire with public duty. Later, Victorian historians, with their love of romance and tragedy, often painted a picture of Dudley as a villainous murderer. Today, the case remains officially unsolved. There is no confession, no smoking gun, no definitive proof. We are left with the same tantalizing fragments of evidence that puzzled the Tudors. We have a body, a convenient death, and a cast of characters with powerful motives. Was it the ruthless ambition of a courtier, desperate to be king? Was it a cold, political calculation by a rival who saw a way to eliminate his enemy? Or was it, as the coroner's jury first concluded, simply a tragic accident, a fall made fatal by a hidden illness? The mystery of Amy Dudley's death has endured for nearly 470 years, a dark question mark hanging over the golden age of Queen Elizabeth I. And so we must ask ourselves, did a queen kill for love?